The crisp October air was a whisper against my skin as I stood on the porch, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tonight was supposed to be special, a night of celebration for my birthday. But as the shadows grew longer, so did my sense of unease. Mark, my husband, was away again, his absence a familiar void. I had planned for a quiet evening, just the two of us, but the empty driveway mocked my anticipation. Just as I was about to retreat into the solitude of our home, the sound of an engine broke the silence. I turned, expecting to see Mark, but instead my father's sleek black Mercedes glided into view. His arrival, with a cryptic promise of a unique birthday gift, set my heart racing. What could he possibly have in store that would make this night unforgettable? The scent of autumn leaves and the crisp air of October filled my lungs as I stood on the porch of our home, watching the sun dip below the horizon. My name is Julie, and at 27, life had settled into a rhythm that was both comforting and, at times, a bit too predictable. Married to Mark, my high school sweetheart for 3 years now, we had carved out a little slice of suburban bliss. Mark, a software developer, often found himself away on business trips, leaving me to tend to our quaint home, a place where every corner whispered stories of our life together. Tonight was supposed to be different. It was the eve of my birthday, and Mark had promised to be home early. I had planned a quiet evening, just the two of us, perhaps a glass of wine, maybe some gentle music, and the warmth of his presence after weeks apart. But as the clock ticked closer to dinner time, the driveway remained empty, and my phone silent. Just as I was about to give in to the disappointment, the sound of a car pulling up broke the evening's silence. I turned, expecting to see Mark's familiar sedan, but instead, my father's sleek black Mercedes rolled into view. Richard, my father, a retired businessman with a personality as commanding as his presence, stepped out. His silver hair caught the last rays of the sun, and his eyes, always sharp, seemed to dance with an unspoken secret. "Julie, my dear," he called out, his voice carrying that familiar tone of authority mixed with affection. "I've brought some company for your birthday." Behind him, 2 figures emerged from the car, both with the same silver hair, and the kind of the evening started with laughter and stories from my father's past adventures, shared over glasses of fine wine. George, with his deep, resonant voice, recounted tales of their travels across Europe, while Henry, always the more reserved of the two, chimed in with witty remarks. The atmosphere was light, filled with nostalgia and the warmth of old friendships. As the night deepened, my father suggested we move to my room for the real celebration. I followed, intrigued by his cryptic promise. Once in my room, he directed George and Henry to sit on the plush velvet chairs by the window. "Julie," my father began, his voice now serious, "I've brought you something unique for your birthday. Something you might not expect." He then instructed George to kiss me on the neck, and Henry to take my hand and kiss it gently. The room was silent except for the soft sound of their lips against my skin. What was my father planning, and why was he involving his friends in such an intimate way? The air in the room felt thick with anticipation. My father's eyes gleamed with a mix of mischief and something else I couldn't quite place. As George's lips brushed against my neck, a shiver ran down my spine, not entirely from discomfort, but from the unexpected nature of the act. Henry's kiss on my hand was tender, almost respectful, yet it felt like a prelude to something more. My father watched, his expression unreadable, as if gauging my reaction. "This," he said, his voice low, "is about trust, Julie. Trust in me, and in the bonds of friendship." I stood there, my mind racing, trying to reconcile the unexpected emotions with my usual sense of morality. The room felt charged with an electric tension as George's lips lingered on my neck, sending shivers down my spine. Henry's hand was warm, his kiss on my hand gentle yet firm. My father watched, his eyes gleaming with an unreadable expression. "Julie," he said, his voice now a whisper. "I want you to experience something new, something beyond the ordinary. Betray your husband with both of them." The shock of his words hit me like a wave, but there was something in his tone, a challenge perhaps, or a test. I looked at George and Henry, their faces a mix of anticipation and respect. I hesitated, my mind racing with the implications, but then, driven by a mix of curiosity and the thrill of the forbidden, I nodded. The room darkened as my father turned off the lights, leaving only the soft glow from the streetlights outside. What followed was an evening of unexpected passion, where boundaries were crossed and secrets were born. The touch of George's hands was like fire on my skin, igniting, a part of me I hadn't known existed. Henry's kisses were like whispers, soft and enticing, drawing me deeper into this forbidden dance. My father's presence, though silent, was palpable, his eyes reflecting a storm of emotions I couldn't decipher. Each moment was a blend of thrill and guilt, the thrill of the unknown, the guilt of the betrayal. My heart pounded in my chest, a drumbeat to the rhythm of our clandestine encounter. As the night unfolded, I found myself lost in a sea of sensations, each touch, each kiss, a wave that pulled me further from the shore of my normal life. The room, once familiar, now felt like a stage for a play I had never rehearsed for. The implications of this night loomed large in my mind. How would I face Mark, my husband, after this? Could I ever look at my father the same way? And George? And Henry? What would our relationship be now, tainted by this shared secret? The morning light would bring clarity, or perhaps more confusion. But for now, in the dim light, I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The morning after was surreal. I woke up alone in my room, the events of the previous night replaying in my mind like a dream. My body felt different, as if it had been awakened to new sensations. Mark was due back today, and the thought of facing him filled me with a mix of guilt and exhilaration. I joined my father for breakfast, where he acted as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred. George and Henry had left early, leaving behind only their lingering scent in the air. "Julie, did you enjoy your birthday gift?" my father asked, his voice casual, but his eyes searching mine for a reaction. "Yes," I replied, my voice steady. "It was memorable." The day passed in a blur, with Mark's return looming over me like a storm cloud. I tried to keep myself busy, cleaning the house, rearranging the furniture, anything to keep my mind from wandering back to last night. But every touch of the fabric, every scent in the air, seemed to whisper secrets of what had transpired. I found myself standing in front of the mirror, examining my reflection. Was there a change in my eyes? A subtle shift in my demeanor? Could anyone tell that I had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed? As the afternoon sun began to set, casting long shadows through the windows, I heard the familiar sound of Mark's car pulling into the driveway. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a cold sweat on my palms. I walked to the door, my steps heavy with the weight of my secret. Mark stepped out of the car, his smile wide, his eyes bright with the joy of returning home. "Hey, Jules," he called out, his voice full of warmth and love. He rushed towards me, enveloping me in a hug that felt both comforting and accusatory. "Hey," I managed to say, my voice a little too high, my smile a little too forced. We sat down for dinner, the table set with his favorite dishes. Mark talked about his trip, the meetings, the new software project, but his words seemed to float around me, not quite penetrating the fog of my thoughts. Mark arrived home, his face lit up with a smile, carrying a bouquet of roses. He hugged me, unaware of the turmoil inside me. As we settled into our evening routine, I watched him, searching for any sign that he might suspect something. The night was tense. Every touch from Mark felt like an accusation, every question a probe into my fidelity. But as the hours passed, it became clear that my secret was safe. Mark was oblivious, his love for me unchanged. Later in the quiet of our bedroom, I lay beside him, my mind racing. The thrill of the secret was intoxicating, yet the weight of it was heavy. Mark's breathing was steady, his arm draped over me in a gesture of affection that now felt like a chain. I couldn't help but replay the night before in my mind, the forbidden dance with George and Henry, orchestrated by my father. Each touch, each whispered word, had felt like a step further into a world I had never known, a world where the rules of my life with Mark seemed to bend and twist. The room was dark, save for the soft glow of the streetlights filtering through the curtains. I turned to look at Mark, his face peaceful in sleep. The contrast between his innocence and my guilt was stark. How long could I keep this secret, and what would happen if it ever came to light? The question haunted me, echoing through the silence of the night. I imagined scenarios where Mark found out, where his love turned to anger, or worse, to heartbreak. Could our marriage survive such a betrayal? I felt a pang of guilt, but also a strange thrill at the thought of the secret being mine alone. It was a power, a dark, seductive power that I held over our relationship, over Mark. As I lay there, the warmth of Mark's body next to mine, I wondered about the future. Would I confess? Would I continue to live with this secret, letting it grow like a shadow between us? Or would it, one day, burst forth, changing everything? The night stretched on, and with each passing moment, the secret felt heavier, yet more intoxicating. Years passed, and the secret of that birthday night remained buried deep within me, shared only with my father and his friends. Mark and I continued our life together, with him none the wiser. My relationship with my father grew complex, layered with unspoken understanding and a bond forged in secrecy. George and Henry occasionally visited, their presence a reminder of that night. But they never spoke of it. Life moved on, with the normalcy of daily routines overshadowing the extraordinary event of my 27th birthday. Yet, every now and then, when I looked at my father or caught a glimpse of George or Henry, I felt a twinge of that thrill, a reminder of the night I betrayed my husband, enjoyed it, and kept it hidden forever. The years brought changes, subtle shifts in our family dynamics. My father, now older, seemed to carry the weight of our shared secret with a certain gravity. His once sharp eyes softened, but they still held that glint of mischief when he looked at me, a silent acknowledgement of our pact. Mark, ever the loving husband, remained oblivious to the undercurrents of our family. His career flourished, taking him away more often, leaving me to manage our home, our life, and the secret that lived within it. Our home, once a sanctuary of our love, now felt like a stage where I played a dual role, the devoted wife and the keeper of a dark secret. Every touch from Mark, every kiss, was tinged with the shadow of that night. I found myself analyzing his expressions, his words, for any sign that he might suspect something, but there was none. His love for me was as unwavering as ever, which only deepened my guilt. I often wondered about George and Henry. Their visits, though infrequent, brought back the memories in vivid detail. They would sit in our living room, their laughter filling the space, but their eyes would sometimes meet mine, and in those moments, I could see the same secret reflected back at me. As time went on, I began to question the nature of my father's gift. Was it a test of loyalty, a twisted form of love, or something darker? The complexity of our Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.